Thank you all for coming to this event. We really appreciate it as we mark the new year and the passage and implementation in 3 days of a very important new law. I am State Senator Hannah-Beth Jackson. I proudly represent the 19th State Senate District, which is all of Santa Barbara County and all of Western Ventura County, right up the road. Please come and visit, but then go home. We'd love to have you, and I'm so honored to be here today and to welcome in this exciting new bill. I also chair the Legislative Women's Caucus and will continue to do so for the upcoming year, and want to thank all of you for coming. I know that you're looking forward to hearing from our speakers, and I thank them for coming. I'll introduce them in a moment. But first, I want to thank the LA Public Library. I was told there are 73 branches of this library. That's enormous. And in particular, this North Hollywood branch, named after one of my sheroes, Amelia Earhart, who was an extraordinary woman and a symbol of the power and perseverance of the American woman, and that can-do attitude, that adventurous spirit that is so much a part of the American persona. In fact, so much so that when a stray cat came to me many years ago on Women's Equality Day, we named her Amelia Airhead. So this is really an exciting place and an exciting moment, I think, in the state's history and in the battle for equal rights. And with me today are our Senate leader, Senator Kevin De Leon, Senator Bob Hertzberg, Noreen Farrell with the Equal Rights Advocates, and George Pla with the Cordoba Corporation. And a special thanks to Patricia Arquette for joining us this morning. Many of you remember in February, I know some of us still watch the Academy Awards very openly. We have parties where we try to guess who the best actor and actress is. It was no shock to learn that after an extraordinary performance in an amazing film called Boyhood, Patricia Arquette received the Oscar for her performance and took her moment, which I'm told can be anywhere up to 2 billion people worldwide watching, took that moment to call for equal pay for women. And it was... And because of that moment, the world was listening, and we heard you. And thanks for that moment. We got on the ball, if you will, and worked hard to get that bill introduced and passed. I also want to thank and give a shout out to the great Billy Greer, who is the past president of the Southern California Leadership Council, for her assistance in bringing us together. We have representatives from the labor community, from the business community. I have some of my wonderful elected folks who came down from my district to be here today. And I want to give a special shout out as well to Kamala Lopez, who's with us, whose documentary film, Equal Means Equal, is truly a clarion call to address inequality for women. So thank you all for being here with us today. And I want to turn over the podium to State Senator Bob Hertzberg, in whose district we are today, to say a few words of welcome. My buddy, Senator Hugsberg.
Thanks, cough drops. HB cough drops, for those who remember. Thank you and welcome to the San Fernando Valley, to my colleagues. To be here. We appreciate it very, very much, and I think this is really apropos, as you correctly noted, Senator, with respect to this announcement here at Amelia Earhart's, at the library dedicated to her. She was a human being who was excellent in aviation, who did great and incredible things, who just happened to be a woman. And at the time she turned 21, she didn't have the right to vote. She certainly didn't get treated equally, and she did great and incredible things. But as you look at the notion of equity and equality throughout the history of this country, it has evolved. When Thomas Jefferson talked about all men being created equal, it was Protestant white men who owned land who had the political right to vote. we have over the years, nearly 240 years next year, grappled with this notion of equity and equality. We have done it when Lincoln was our great president and his wife could not vote and did not have political equality. We did it at a time in 1954 when we tried to deal with equality and equity for education, and it's taken 60 years to deal with segregation. We've done it with the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, that all of those who are constitutionalists understand how long it has really taken. And here we are on the verge of 2016, engaged in the fight, in the common sense fight of equity. And it takes, the message of all of this is that democracy is living and growing, and that those underlying values that we talk about so greatly require people who are gladiators, who are vigilant, who never give up. And everybody who's in this room who knows Hannah-Beth Jackson knows that she is one of those gladiators. And a great deal of credit goes to her and her leadership and her unending energy and determination, because that's what it takes. And you're introduced. Are you going to come up and say something further? I wanted to talk a little bit about what she did with respect to the act. But ladies and gentlemen, Hannah-Beth Jackson.
Well, I appreciate all the accolades, but you know, this doesn't happen alone. And I look out here and I see a lot of women, some of us with that gray hair, some who try to cover it up. We've been at this battle now, I know I have, for over 35 years. And the fact that we are here today is really quite extraordinary. On January 1st, we will have implemented the strongest equal pay bill in the nation for the people of California. Yeah. But before we celebrate, let's take a look at some of the really shocking statistics around the wage gap that actually led to the equal pay bills being passed. A white woman in California working full-time makes 84 cents to every dollar her white male counterpart makes. African American women make 64 cents. And Latinas experienced the largest Latino wage gap in the country at 44 cents to every dollar a man makes. This is unacceptable. This must change. And so we recognized, as we introduced this bill, that collectively women leave $39 billion a year on the table because we are not paid equally for the work we do. That's money that would go to clothe and house and feed our families. And in today's world, women are in the workforce primarily by necessity. Almost 50% of the workforce today is comprised of women. Over 50%, approximately 60% of all women today are working in the workforce. And they are either the sole breadwinner of their family, the primary breadwinner of their family, or their income is necessary for their families to have the necessities of life. This is a serious issue. It is something that has changed to some extent over the course of time, but by failing to pay women equally and fairly for the work that we do, this shortchanges more than half of our population at a time when our incomes, women's incomes, matter more than ever for their families, our economy, and our state. This year in California, we said, enough. And with the passage of this law, whether you're a woman working in Hollywood or in a hotel, as a civil engineer or a salesperson, as a nurse or a network analyst, this law says we will tolerate nothing less than fair pay that isn't just the same for exactly the same work, but for substantially similar work as well. Yeah. So this means not just that a male nurse can't earn more than a female nurse unless there is a legitimate job-related reason for that pay difference, but also that a janitor can't make more than a housekeeper or maid, even though one cleans a lobby while the other cleans hotel rooms. When you measure their work, it is substantially similar, and they should be paid equally for the work they do. This law will also allow an employee to challenge pay differences at a different location of the same employer. And finally, it puts the burden on the employer to prove that a difference in wages is due to a legitimate business purpose, such as experience and training, and not discrimination. And significantly, this will also mean the beginning of the end of the culture of secrecy that has surrounded workers' pay and other forms of compensation. Without this law, women, or with this law, I should say, women will be able to ask what their male coworkers are actually being paid without the fear of being retaliated against, without the fear of being fired for having done so. And this is important, of course, because you can't challenge what you don't know. In California today, we will change that because for years, this pay gap has thrived in secrecy. Let's all start challenging that taboo and start talking about pay with each other, because now we can do so without the fear of reprisal. Now, I have more, and I know you're waiting to hear what our featured speakers have to say, but I want to share with you just a little bit more of why this is such a significant bill and why I think we're here today. If a woman is experiencing wage discrimination, an employee will be able to proceed in two different avenues to redress that grievance. One will be to file an administrative complaint with the Division of Labor Standards Enforcement, which is housed in the Department of the Industrial Relations Department of the state of California. The other is she can go ahead and file a complaint in the Superior Court. There are two approaches that can be taken. Now, all of us here are realistic. Litigation alone is not going to solve the problem. We don't expect that the wage gap will stop at midnight on December 31st. This has been a culture. This is really a need for a shift, a whole paradigm shift in the way people think about work, both employers and employees. But already we are seeing changes. There have been top employers who have come forward to announce that they are revisiting their pay schedules, that they are looking to see whether or not they are inadvertently paying less to women because they are women. Well, I have seen anecdotally, I have had people come to me and say that they have demanded of their employers that they review their pay schedules, both men and women demanding that women are paid fairly. And that's vital because we need change to come not just from the bottom up, from employees, but also from the top down, from employers. So I say the challenge in 2016 to the employers of this state is to make equal pay a top priority for the year ahead. Our work is not done, but I look forward with great hope to what we can accomplish in the coming year. Like the great pilot and pioneer Amelia Earhart, for the heights to which we can soar together for the benefit of the women and families of our state, for the benefit of our businesses, the economy of this state. More money in means more money will be spent at different businesses, the economy will thrive, and we will all be the better for it. And with that, I now want to turn the podium over to a woman who certainly knows how to use her time well on the stage. Not only did she win an Oscar for her extraordinary performance, and I hope you all, if you haven't seen Boyhood, will go see that movie, where, interestingly enough, she played the featured role of a single mother who was the core of this family. She lit a match when she gave that acceptance speech to a movement that has been simmering for decades. And when she called for equal pay once and for all in her Oscar acceptance speech, women around the world collectively stood up and cheered. In Sacramento, she inspired us to get to work, and 2 days after that extraordinary speech, we stood before a room packed with members of the media and colleagues and others within the legislative process and called for equal pay. And although we had been poised to introduce this bill for 35 years, the fact that she had stepped up as she had, we are so grateful. We are so grateful for what you did to speak on equal pay. We know there is much more work to do, but we are grateful you're here today on the eve of this law taking effect. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Patricia Arquette.
Wow. Well, I'm so happy to be here today to start the celebrations of a great new year and an incredible new law, the California Fair Pay Act, which will be the strongest equal pay law in the country. I want to send my thanks out to Governor Brown and to Senator Jackson for making this day a reality. I'm standing here with Senator Jackson and Noreen Farrell from Equal Rights Advocates, who worked so hard on crafting and passing this law. We're so grateful for this law that was passed with bipartisan support and business support, because it's going to take all of us to come together to close the pay gap that hurts women and kids that they have to feed, especially African American and Latina women and other women of color. Right now in the United States, we have 33 million women and children living in poverty because their mothers, who are working full-time, are not paid their full dollar. That's 1/10 of our population in the United States. We were speaking in the back earlier, and Senator Jackson's been working on this for decades. It's the feminization of poverty. When I call on wage equality in my Oscar speech for Boyhood almost a year ago, I decided to seize that moment to honor the mother that I played in that movie, who, like so many million mothers, was not being paid her full dollar, who had to move her kids. They had to change schools, make new friends, get readjusted. They had to sacrifice, would sometimes go hungry, who had to live at times on the edge of poverty, because we live in a country where women are valued less. Luckily, in this room, we have so many powerful advocates and activists in women's rights issues. I was made aware of many of these issues by my friend Kamala Lopez, the director of the upcoming documentary Equal Means Equal. No one can live making 44 cents on the dollar, like Latinas in this state, or making 63 cents on the dollar like our African American sisters. Our lesbian sisters, especially the women of color, are 28% more likely to be living in poverty. And our trans sisters have the highest likelihood of living in deep poverty than any group. Today we say no more. Women drive this economy. We make 89% of all purchasing decisions. We make or break elections. We deserve better, and so do our kids. Just as we are able to pass the California Fair Pay Act, we must push for fair pay bills across the nation. We must keep pushing to pass other laws on women's equality that address poverty. We need to keep pushing until this country, in which every person, man and woman, has a fair chance to succeed. In terms of women equality, we're just getting started. Am I right? Yes. All right. So I really urge the reporters in this room to reach out to all of the activists and advocates here. Yes, the story is here on this stage with the amazing senator, the work she's done in this new law, but the story is also all around you. I encourage you to reach out to these advocates, get their cards, educate yourself about the work that they're doing. Let them tell you the stories of their clients, people who will benefit from this law and better equality across the country. Amplify the message of these powerful activists. Keep women in the headlines. Keep the conversation growing and evolving. These are the stories that make me most happy about the passage of the California Fair Pay Act, because some woman and her children will be able to buy groceries because of this. pay rent because of this, get tutoring for their child, their special needs child because of this, send their kid to college because of this, put money down to buy a house because of this. Thank you for having me here, and thanks to Senator Jackson for bringing such groundbreaking change to the citizens of California.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your voice. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for your commitment to these issues. It is so critical that we have strong voices, determined activists, and also determined leaders. And it is my honor and privilege to present to you one of those truly determined leaders committed to equality and opportunity for all Californians, regardless of race, regardless of creed, regardless of religion. This is a man who is my leader, and I am honored to serve with him in the California State Senate, Senator Kevin De Leon.
First of all, I'd like to congratulate Senator Jackson for leading the charge on this very historic piece of legislation. HBJ's leadership on this measure exemplifies how the California Senate continues to lead the nation on common sense, fair, and forward-thinking policies. And let me underscore and let me be very clear, because I know these comments will be very public. The California State Senate is the best legislative body in the country, bar none. We are the nation's R&D national laboratory for progressive, far-reaching policies, like the bill that we are celebrating today from HBJ. With Senate Bill 358, the Fair Pay Act, California now has the toughest pay equity law in the nation. It's not in New York, it's not in Massachusetts or Illinois, and it's surely not coming out of Washington, D.C. California, once again, with their leaders, many of them who are in this room here today, and many of those on the stage with a powerful voice from Patricia Arquette and a powerful political voice in our California State Legislature, like HBJ, we're demonstrating and showing the entire nation what can be done when strong women of all ethnicities come together collectively. And when men stand in solidarity with our partners, our equal partners, to move forward far-reaching progressive legislation that helps improve the human condition for all individuals, but in particular today, for women. This critical accomplishment at a time when too many California households, and Patricia, you said it so eloquently, many of which are led by a single mother, are struggling to make ends meet. And this is not just an issue for low-wage workers. Hollywood, even the brightest stars, faced wage discrimination in 2015, which speaks to the depth of this gender pay gap in our great state. The 7th largest economy on planet Earth. That is California. The 7th largest GDP on planet Earth. There are only 6 other nations that have a much larger economy than California. There's much to be proud of, but at the same time, there's much to be ashamed of, because it just doesn't impact low-wage workers. It impacts even those brightest stars here in a city like Los Angeles, here in Hollywood. California's women demand and deserve fair pay for equal work. Imagine the frustration of a working single mother struggling to provide for her family while knowing that a man makes significantly more than her for doing the same work or comparable work. The figures are shocking. They already have been articulated. California women make 84% of what men make. And Latinas are the worst. 44 cents on the dollar compared to what white men make. California has the shameful distinction of having the worst Latina gender gap in the nation. This is a problem that is very personal for me. As someone who was raised, along with my two older sisters, by a single mother, and Patricia, I think you could have played my mother, you know, in the movie. A woman who worked multiple jobs. I think many of them know my story already. A single mother with a third-grade education who cleaned homes in some of the most exclusive neighborhoods in this country. A woman who struggled to put the roof over our head, to put the clothes on our backs, and put the food on the table. But unfortunately, the reality is this. My mother's story is not unique. My mother's story is not unusual. As a group of women, working women in California, as HBJ just mentioned, lose $33 billion a year in earnings because of this gender wage gap. $33 billion that can be invested into our economy. $33 billion that sometimes the state of California and taxpayers as a whole, irrespective of your political party or ideology or affiliation, whether you're Democrat or Republican, decline to state, agnostic, we all pay that tab at the end of the day. So I am amazingly proud and thankful to Senator Jackson, who I very affectionately call HBJ, I don't call her Senator Jackson in the Capitol, who put this measure in the forefront of closing the gender gap pay, because we still have a lot of ground to cover. I want to thank you, Senator Jackson, HBJ, Patricia, to all of the good folks who helped draft this measure, to all the amazing and incredible women in this audience who've been part of this struggle for a very long time to bring equality and justice to California's women. Antes que nada, quisiera felicitar a mi colega, la senadora Hannah-Beth Jackson, por llevar a cabo este muy importante proyecto de ley. El liderazgo de la senadora Jackson es un ejemplo de cómo el Senado de California sigue liderando la nación en las políticas públicas justas, de sentido común, con una visión hacia el futuro. Con el proyecto de ley SB 358, o conocido como la Ley de Pago Justo, California ahora tiene la ley más rígida de igualdad de salario de toda la nación. Eso es un logro muy importante, especialmente porque demasiadas familias en el estado de California, la séptima potencia mundial, muchas de las cuales son encabezadas por madres solteras, están luchando día tras día, mes tras mes, año tras año, haciendo todo lo posible para mejorar la condición humana de sus familias, particularmente sus hijos, para cumplir con las necesidades, las mensualidades de la familia. Y eso no es solo un ejemplo, un problema para los trabajadores de bajos ingresos, sino también las estrellas más famosas de Hollywood enfrentan igual también la discriminación de salario hoy en día, lo cual habla de la profunda diferencia de salarios entre los hombres y las mujeres en nuestro estado. Las mujeres de California exigen y merecen un salario justo por hacer el mismo trabajo que desempeñan los hombres. Imagínense la frustración de una madre soltera que trabaja día tras día, noche tras noche, que lucha para mantener a su familia, pero sabiendo que un hombre gana mucho más que ella haciendo el mismo trabajo o trabajo similar. Las cifras son realmente impactantes. Las mujeres en California ganan el 84% por cada dólar en comparación de un hombre anglosajón. Y las mujeres latinas, y quiero enfatizar y subrayar, las mujeres latinas ganan solamente el 44% de un dólar en comparación de los hombres anglosajones. El 44%. Y eso se debe al género y el color de su piel para las mujeres latinas aquí en la séptima potencia mundial. California tiene la distinción vergonzosa de tener la peor desigualdad de salario por género en toda la nación para las latinas. Y eso no es un problema solamente para mí. Esto es un problema que yo quisiera enfatizar, que es algo muy personal para mí. Como muchos ya saben, yo me creí con 2 hermanas mayores, mientras que mi mamá trabajó como madre soltera con solo 3 años escolares completados escolares, haciendo todo lo posible para pagar el techo, agua y luz. Las mujeres colectivamente pierden más de 33,000 millones de dólares. Eso quiere decir con B grande, no con M. 33,000 millones de dólares que las mujeres solteras y las mujeres colectivamente pierden en el estado de California. Yo quisiera darle las gracias a una mujer muy fuerte como la senadora Hannah-Beth Jackson, a la actriz Patricia, you don't mind if I call you Patricia, right? Patricia Arquette y todos los líderes aquí del Senado, los líderes del sector de los empresarios y todos los lideresas aquí hoy día, las mujeres que ya llevan décadas en las trincheras, haciendo todo lo posible, luchando para que nuestras mujeres, madres, hermanas, abuelas y tías tengan una voz aquí en este gran país, pero en este gran estado. Muchas gracias, compañera Hannah-Beth Jackson, y muchas gracias a cada uno de ustedes. Muchas gracias a todos. Gracias.
So when I first talked to Patricia Arquette, she became aware, I'm not sure of how or why, of our bill that we had done a press conference, and I had the opportunity to talk with her on the phone. And the first thing she said is, and I hope this is a bipartisan effort. And I thought, my goodness, that is a challenge. But at the end of the day, not only was it a bipartisan effort, it was almost a unanimous effort. And part of the reason it was so successful is because of a woman named Noreen Farrell, who is here with us today. And I thought this was really going to be tough. Well, it was tough, but it was more than doable because Noreen, on behalf of the equal rights advocates and a number of the other advocacy groups, some of whom are with us today, stepped up to the plate. We spent hours and hours working with the business community to the point where we actually, at the end of the day, had the support of the California Chamber of Commerce on this bill. And it is because of the hard work of people like Noreen that we can say we did this with bipartisan support, Patricia. And here to say a few words and to share with us her thoughts is Noreen Farrell, the Executive Director of Equal Rights Advocates. Noreen.
Sí se puede.
Sí se puede.
Well, these are some very tough acts to follow. They're great acts to follow, but really it has been my honor and privilege to work alongside these incredible legislators and Patricia Arquette, who, I was at an event for my organization on Oscars night, and I said, I hope those Hollywood women just give them hell tonight. And literally, we walked in and we saw it, and it was just this moment. It was so galvanizing for people that have been caring about this issue for so long, like Patricia, and so many advocates and legislators who've been working for decades to ensure equal pay for equal work. So I really have to say that this bill really came after many decades of piecing together the very best pieces of state laws across the country. And we decided we wanted to build a dream bill. And I'm here to tell you right now that the California Fair Pay Act is that dream bill. It is a bill that is inspired by the women of California. It celebrates the women of California. In my organization, we've been leading this fight for decades. We've been to the U.S. Supreme Court. We have a hotline. We talk to people. We're in courts. We're working with business leaders. And we knew that when we sponsored the California Fair Pay Act, there were 39, not 33, it's gotten worse, 39 billion reasons to pass the California Fair Pay Law. That is how many combined dollars are lost to women working full-time in California because of the gap. And listen, this isn't just a really big number. I did say B with a B, billion with a B. For an individual family, closing the average wage gap of $8,000 per year means 58 more weeks of food for her family. It means 4 months more of mortgage and utility payments. It means 6 months more of rent. It means 2,500 more gallons of gas. I know that doesn't get you very far in LA, but it's a lot. It's a lot to working mothers. My organization works with women and families that they just cannot afford discrimination and lower wages. They are women of color experiencing, as we've heard, the worst pay gap in the country. They are breadwinners of their family. They work in all kinds of industries, from women in Hollywood, who I have to give a shout out to. They've been such incredible advocates and feminists on this issue this year, to housekeepers like your mother and my mother. It shouldn't be that if you work in a hotel, if you clean a hotel room, you're making less than a janitor who's cleaning the lobby. It's about women like Eileen Rizzo, who's a math educator, who came to us because she was making $14,000 less per year than a man who was hired 4 years after her. Today, we really celebrate all the women who inspired the California Fair Pay Act. On January 1st, because of the California Fair Pay Act, they will be able to talk more freely about pay. And we know that pay secrecy is the #1 reason that pay discrimination persists. They will not have to make less for substantially the same work because they have a different job title. These are the kinds of protections that will close the pay gap. And I really look forward to seeing what the women of California do with their $39 billion. I look forward to see how they will invest it in the California economy. I look forward to hearing about how they're going to invest it in their families, in their kids' educations, in their retirement. Maybe a lot more Hollywood movies they'll buy tickets to, right? I really also look forward to continuing to work with these dream team of advocates, business leaders, Hollywood champions, activists, and women from our communities to continue this work in 2016. Because we are pushing a broader women's economic agenda called Stronger California under the leadership of Senator Jackson and the Women's Legislative Caucus. We have a lot to do, but this is a great day. And because New Year's is all about resolutions, here's one. We will enforce the California Fair Pay Act and continue pushing for reform across the country until every woman receives the paycheck she deserves. Thank you.
All right.
Well, that is the perfect segue to our final speaker, and then we will take a few questions at that point. We have with us George Pla. George is the president and CEO of Cordoba Corporation, which is a prominent California civil engineering firm. And we know engineers are good-paying jobs, and we need more women in those jobs. George encourages talent, hiring, and the promotion of women in technical positions. I've met many of them who are here with us today, as well as hiring women in the executive ranks as well. And as we were chatting about this earlier, he said something which I have heard from other progressive business leaders. He said, you know, women help a company be profitable. Women have a different perspective, and it's a perspective that often improves the quality of one's product. And indeed, being 52% of the population, we know as women what women want, need, and look for when they go out to buy products and to be consumers. And Cordoba is an example of a business that has succeeded throughout the years by paying women and men equally. Thank you, George, and welcome to today's event.
Thank you. I bring you good news. I'm your last speaker. Seriously, I want to thank Senator Jackson for not only your commitment, for your tenacity. 35 years, my goodness, is a long haul, and I congratulate you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just baffled that in 2016 almost, we're still talking about equal pay for equal work. I can understand that. In this great state of California, this great nation, United States of America, we're still talking about this. And it's beyond my comprehension. All you have to do is look at our demographics, look at population patterns, look at the trends in our schools and our colleges, and you can see what makes up the workforce. Who are the consumers? Who is raising our families? At Cordoba, we're very blessed. After 32 years, we have been incredibly successful, and let me tell you why. Half of the workforce in our company are women. Our HR manager, our communications director, our senior VP of transportation, our senior VP of energy, our managing partner, our CFO, all women. Some would say I'm no fool. Cordoba simply reflects the communities where we work and where we live. Employers who do not understand what their communities look like or their consumers look like are at a great disadvantage. Thank you very much.
So you can tell that George is not a politician. He was short and sweet. At this point in time, we'd be happy to take some questions. Before we do, though, I want to give a particular shout out to my staff who were supposed to be on vacation this week, who came down from Sacramento to help put this together. And particularly Lisa Gardner, who I promise I won't bug you until January 2nd. Or is it the 4th when we go back into session? Oh, okay. For her hard work in putting this together. This is really part of the purpose today is so that we can get the word out to everyone, employers, employees, about this new law and how important it is. So in the spirit of Amelia Earhart, onward and upward, I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank our speakers, a particular thank you to Patricia Arquette for her leadership. And at this point in time, we will take some questions. So if you have some, yes. Carmen.
Thank you for this. I want to ask a lawyer question. I know you're a lawyer, Hannah-Beth.
We're going to scare everybody out of the room, though, if you ask a lawyer question.
We know that President Obama signed the Ledbetter Act.
Yes.
First thing he signed when he came into office. What's the difference? What's the advantage?
The Ledbetter Act really dealt with the statute of limitations on when a person could bring a suit. The Supreme Court had said you can only bring a suit within a certain amount of time where the offense occurred. Well, Lilly Ledbetter didn't know that she was being paid less for decades, or maybe 10 years, but that's a long time. And what's interesting is Lilly Ledbetter only learned about the inequities in her pay because one of her co-workers, either intentionally or inadvertently, left his pay stub on her desk. When you think about that, because at that point in time, and continuing until this new law takes effect, at least here for the women of California, an employee could get fired. There were contracts, employee contracts, where you're prohibited from discussing compensation with your colleagues. That will no longer be the case starting on January 1st. Yes, sir. Patricia, do you want to?
Especially given the unique way
Right.
that projects are put together, lead actor and lead actress, could you foresee a studio claiming that they have a legitimate reason to pay a lead actor differently?
The question is about Hollywood and how Hollywood seems to operate and whether or not lead actor, lead actress are going to be able to negotiate that. Patricia, I suspect you've got an answer.
Well, I think because of the Sony hack, which was the strangest thing in the world. I mean, here we have this leader in Asia who's offended about this movie coming out, who hacks this huge industry, and it let us know about this pay inequality, not just for actresses, but also for women working in editing, special effects, all the way down the line in every area. So yes, there will be this industry, all industries will be compelled to follow the law in California under this new law. Now, there's a lot of things people don't understand about the entertainment business. when you work in TV, you have something called a TVQ as an actor. So that's your kind of rating, how many people recognize you on TV. There's a value to that. There's a value to the fact if you won an award or this kind of award or that kind of award. So obviously the industry will be trying to show different values and how things make sense. But in general, they're going to have to make a radical readjustment, and they know that because they know for decades they've been paying unfairly. But when I spoke out, it wasn't really about acting so much, but it will have to be addressed, like all of these other things across the board.
Let me follow up on Ted, because I think you asked me this question when we were at Fox Studios not too long ago. And as a person who rewrote the film and TV tax credit, you asked me this question. Just a quick commentary on what Patricia said. Patricia, obviously there's weighted formulas, different methodologies, and how you factor in one's pay level, whether you're talent, high level, whether you're below the line, behind the camera, et cetera, whether you're part of collective bargaining agreement or not, or you have CAA who represents whoever it is. This is the bottom line. Hollywood is very important to us in the state of California, and we're bringing back TV and film back to California. It's measurable, it's quantifiable. But there's no special exemption for the Hollywood community, or for that matter, for any other community. Pay is pay, and this issue applies across the board equally, universally. So whether you're Fox, Disney, Warner Brothers, Universal, or Sony, there is no special exemption that you can pay women less irrespective of the position that they hold in your company or within that space or field. So I just want to be very clear about that, what the intention is behind the weight of the law.
Any other questions? Yes.
You mentioned how hard it's going to be, and it's just the beginning, studying this law. But what I see is how long it's going to take to change the culture of women. Because what I see with many Latinas is, yeah, I know I should be paying more, I know I don't have enough, but I don't want to lose my job. How do you change that culture and that fear, which is real? You're coming along.
Well, everything always starts with one step. And this is truly the first step. And if women know that they cannot be fired because they found out that they're being paid less than their male counterparts, that's really important. That is going to blow up this sort of culture of secrecy. And the hope, of course, is that businesses, and I know the entertainment business has already started looking at the way they pay men and women in the business. They're actually, as I understand it, even looking at the fact that there are so few women in so many of the important aspects of that industry, including directors and so forth, and people behind the camera. But what this is hopefully going to do is make us start reevaluating in all areas of business and commerce. And when you keep in mind that $39 billion a year loss of buying power that impacts not only the consumer, but the business. We have businesses in this state that want people to come and buy their products and use their services. With $39 billion more available, business will flourish as well. So it is our hope that we are going to shift the culture. Part of the reason we're all here today is to highlight this bill, to get the word out to everybody, business and consumer and women alike, that the time for equality is now. And with that, I'm going to wish you all a happy new year. Onward and upward. Thank you for being here.